Hey guys, how you doing? Yes, my name is Kathu and welcome to my channel, Learn Maths with Kathu. So today, I'd like us to continue practicing this concept, word problems. We'll do some questions. So let's get started, shall we? So the first question that I want us to go through today is this. The average mass of students in a class of 45 was 41 kgs at the beginning of a term. At the end of the term, they had each gained 3 kgs. Calculate A, their total mass at the end of the term, and B, the difference between their total mass at the start of the term and the end of the term. Okay? This is another very simple question. Let us read the question again as we write what we understand. Okay, so we've been told that the average mass of students in a class of 45 was 41 kgs at the beginning of the term. Okay, so what does that sentence mean? So let's write out what we understand. So we've been told that this class has 45 students. So this class has 45 students, we've written that already, and the average mass of the students is 41 kgs, okay? So let's continue reading the question. At the end of the term, they had each gained 3 kilograms, okay? Yeah, so at the end of the term, each student had gained 3 kilograms in weight. So that means that we'll add the 3 kgs to the average mass of students, okay? So when we add the 3 kgs to the average mass of students, we'll get their new weight at the end of the term. So at the end of the term, the average mass was 41 plus 3, which is 44 kgs, okay? So, what is the first part of the question asking us to do? Calculate A, their total mass at the end of the term. Okay? So, the first part of the question is asking us to calculate their total mass at the end of the term. Okay? And we've been given the average mass and we are expected to use it to find the total mass. Okay, is that possible? Yes, it is. So how do we calculate the average of anything in maths? The average is derived by dividing the total by the number of things. Okay, so in this case, the average mass of students will be derived by dividing the total mass of students by the total mass of students by the number of students in the class, okay? So what exactly is this question asking us to do? The question is asking us to calculate the total mass at the end of the term, okay? And we know that the average mass of students at the end of the term is 44 kgs. And we also know that this class has 45 students, okay? So that means that the total number of students is 45, okay? And we are trying to calculate the total mass, okay? So we can denote the total mass by a letter, say R. So you can say total mass is R kgs, okay? Yeah, so now we have, when we replace the formula with these digits, we have this, okay? So here, we are trying to find R. And how do we do that? We do that by ensuring that the R remains alone, okay? So when you multiply this side by 45, the R will remain alone, okay? Yes, the 45 will cancel out and the R will remain alone, just as we want it. Okay, and remember, what you do to one side, you must do the same thing to the other side, okay? So that means that we'll multiply 45 on this side as well. So when we have this cancels out, this times 45, okay? So when you multiply 44 kgs times 45, we'll get when you multiply this, you'll get 1,980 kgs. Okay, and by the way, if multiplication is a challenge, I did a lesson on multiplication of whole numbers in one of the previous videos. So if it's a challenge, feel free to watch those videos. Okay, so our R, as we know, is our R is 1,980 kgs, okay? And what is R? R, we said, is the total mass. So now we can comfortably conclude that the total mass at the end of the term is 1,980 kgs, okay? And just like that, we have our answer. Are we together? Okay, so let's now go through part B of the question. Part B, the difference between their total mass at the start of their term, and at the end of the term, okay? So here, we've been asked to calculate the difference between their total mass at the start of the term and the end of the term, okay? So anytime you see the word difference, you should automatically know that there is some subtraction going on, okay? So here, we should calculate their total mass at the start of the term and at the end of the term, and then subtract, okay? Yes. And now because of part A, we know that the total mass at the end of the term is 1,980 kgs, okay? So let's now calculate the total mass at the beginning of the term, okay? And we've also been told that the average mass of students is 41 kgs at the beginning of the term, okay? And when we are doing part A, we established that the average mass is derived by dividing the total mass over the number of students, okay? Yeah, so here we are still dealing with the same number of students. So the number of students will remain 45, okay? And here in this case, we can denote the total mass with letter N, okay? So now we have, okay, so we'll multiply both sides by 45 to remove this 45 here. So we'll multiply this by 45 and this by 45. So when you multiply 41 kgs times 45, you're supposed to get 1,845 kgs. Okay? This is the total mass at the beginning of the term, okay? And the question is asking us to find the difference between the total mass at the start of the term and at the end of the term, okay? So that means that we'll subtract these two. This is the total mass at the end of the term. So we'll subtract these two, this minus this, and when you do that, you get 135 kgs, okay? Yes, when you subtract this, you'll get 135 kgs. So we can comfortably conclude that the difference between the total mass at the start of the term and at the end of the term is 135 kilograms, okay? That was quite easy, right? Okay, so let's go through one last question. 5 companies employed this, and these workers, okay? The first 2 companies laid off 1 worker for every 5, while the other 3 recruited 2 new workers, okay, for every 3. Part A is asking what was the total number of workers at the beginning, okay? Part B is asking how many people, Roman 1, lost jobs, Roman 2, got jobs, okay? And part C is asking what is the total number of workers finally, okay? So I'd like us to first pause the video and try and answer the question. I believe you've done that. So let's now answer it together. As usual, let's read the question as we write down what we understand. Okay? So Yeah, so we can label the companies. So let's read the question as we write. 5 companies employed this number of workers. Okay, so we can label the companies like this. So you can say company A had this, B, C, D, E. Okay. These are the number of workers that worked in the companies, okay? And we've been told that the first 2 companies laid off 1 worker for every 5. So that means that we need to write that out like this. So we'll say A and B laid off 1 worker for every 5. And while the other 3 recruited 2 new workers for every 3. Okay, and the other 3 companies are C, D, and E. Okay, so we'll need to write that out as well, the way we've done it here. So C, D, and E recruited 2 new workers for every 5. Sorry, 2 new workers for every 3. Part A, what was the total number of workers at the beginning? Okay? Yes. So part A is asking us to calculate the total number of workers at the beginning. Okay? And like the number of workers that were there previously before all the laying off and recruitment happened. Okay? So at the beginning, company A had at the beginning, company A had this number of workers, company B, C, D, and E. Okay, so when you add all of this, you get 8,780 workers. Okay, yes. And addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction are topics I covered some time back. So I'll leave the links in the description box below so that you're all on the same page. So now we can comfortably conclude that there were 8,780 workers at the beginning. Okay, so let's now look at part B of the question. How many people, Roman 1, lost jobs? Okay, yes, so here we are being asked to calculate the number of people that lost jobs. Okay, and as we were reading the question, we found out that it was only 2 companies that laid off workers. Okay, yes, yeah, we've been told that the first 2 companies laid off 1 worker for every 5. Okay, and we established that the first 2 companies are company A and company B. Okay, so now we are trying to find out how many workers lost their jobs. How do we do that? So we'll do that by calculating the total number of workers that are in those 2 companies. Okay, company A has this number of workers and B has this. When you add, you get 5,795 workers. Okay, yes, and we've been told that they laid off 1 worker for every 5. Okay, so meaning that out of 5 workers, 1 of them lost their jobs. Are you together? Okay, and now that we know how many people worked in those companies, we can easily calculate how many of them lost their jobs. So out of 5,795 workers, how many lost their jobs? So when we do the math, we'll realize that 1,159 workers lost their jobs. Okay, and that's basically it. So that's the answer to that part of the question. Are we together? Roman 2 got jobs. So we now want to know how many people got jobs. Okay, and from the question we know that it was only companies C, D, and E that recruited new workers, because we've been told the other 3 recruited 2 new workers for every 3. Okay, so here we'll first need to calculate the total number of workers that are in the 3 companies. Okay, so these are the number of workers that are in the 3 companies, companies C, D, and E. When we add this, we get 2,985 workers. Okay, so let's now find out how many people got jobs. Okay, and we've been told, so we've been told the other three recruited 2 new workers for every 3. Okay, so we want to know how many people got jobs. So 1,990 people got jobs. Okay, and just like that, you have your answer. So let's now go through the last part of the question. Part C, what was the total number of workers? Finally, okay, so here we are being asked to calculate how many workers made it to the end after all the laying off and recruiting. Okay, so this is exactly what I was talking about some time back. Do you now see how connected word problems can be? So for you to be able to get part C right, you need to have gotten part A and B right as well, okay? Because in order for us to calculate how many people made it to the end, we need to know how many workers were there at the beginning and how many of them lost their jobs and how many were recruited. Okay, so according to part A of the question, we know that there were 8,780 workers at the beginning. Okay, according to part B, we know that 1,159 lost their jobs and this got jobs. Okay, yes, so from the total number of workers that were there at the beginning, we'll subtract the guys that lost jobs and we'll add the ones that got jobs. So when you do the math, you get 9,611 workers, okay? So it was 9,611 workers that made it to the end after all the laying off and recruiting, okay? Okay, so that was quite easy, right? Exactly. Always remember that math is all about practice. Watching videos alone is not enough. Once you watch a video, it's your responsibility as a good student to practice with questions regarding that video that you've watched, okay? Because practice makes perfect. Additionally, I'd like to mention that I offer tutoring services. So if you're interested in getting tutored, please make sure you fill out the Google form that I've included in the description box of this video, as well as in all my other videos. I'll reach out to you as soon as possible. Okay. So if you enjoyed the lesson, feel free to like, share, because sharing is caring, and subscribe so that you don't miss any time I upload a new video. Subscribing is free. Yay! See you in 2 weeks' time. Same time, same place. Bye!